Good morning, good people of a great nation. It's your program, Development Focus with Jide Ojo on ITV, this fateful Wednesday. Today we will be talking again for the 18th time about security, or should I say insecurity in Nigeria. We are all aware that government is doing quite a lot to bring peace and security into our dear nation. But the nation bleeds despite that. The nation bleeds, and even the government, let's take the word of Minister of Defense for it. He acknowledged that the nation bleeds. But should we allow this country to bleed to death? Igbos will say, to fear. But if we are not going to allow the nation to bleed to death, we need to fix the problem. And that's why I've sought out an eminent Nigerian, a scholar of international repute, a peace advocate, a conflict manager, and an all-rounder when it comes to issue of peace and security, not only in Nigeria or Africa, but globally. And here I'm talking about Professor Isaac OLAWALE Albert. Prof, you're welcome on the show.
Thank you, Jide, for inviting me to your show.
My condolences on your mom's death. We thank God that you survived the mama.
Thank you so much.
So before we start to dissect the issue, tell us about yourself. I know you are a compendium, but even if it's a synopsis, a summary of whom you are, for majority of Nigerians who may not have met you or seen you on any of the media platforms.
Well, I'm Professor Isaac OLAWALE Albert. I'm a professor of African History, Peace and Conflict Studies. I established the Peace and Conflict Studies program of the University of Ibadan. I established the one in University of Ilorin. I established the Peace Studies program of the University of Cape Coast in Ghana. I am the current editor-in-chief of the African Union's Journal on Terrorism, based at the Center for Counter-Terrorism in Algiers. I'm a consultant to the Commonwealth. I'm a full member of Chatham House, London, and I have peace and security projects across the globe.
You could see, distinguished viewers, that this is not just a tilapia fish. This is a shark. This is a dolphin. This is the person we can get the honest truth from about how we can fix the challenge of security in Nigeria. So, Prof, I'm looking at the missing gap in fixing the challenge of insecurity in Nigeria. Run us through a panorama of what you think. Give us an update of where you think Nigeria's security challenge lies at present.
In answering your question, I'm going to be very, very scientific. Scientific in the sense that if this were to be a question posed by the government of Nigeria or any government that is willing to assist Nigeria, I would not answer. It's not a question that I would just answer ordinarily, but I will answer academically. Now, to manage the kind of problems that we have 5 standard methods, 5 standard approaches. And the first is what we call avoidance or denial. The government that is facing that problem could deny it, could avoid touching it. Denial is to say that the problem does not exist. In fact, we have 5 types of denial. You either say the problem does not exist, those who are talking about it are enemies of the state, or that the problem exists, but what we see, what the ordinary citizens see, is not the full package of what is happening, and that probably something else is happening. I don't want to waste too much time on it, but it is a philosophy of governance in Nigeria that when Nigerians say we are hungry, the government will say, why are you hungry? No, nobody is hungry. Everybody is well fed. When Nigerians say we are killed, people will say no, nobody is being killed.
It's just a skirmish.
It's just a skirmish, and that those talking about it are the enemies of state. Then the second approach is what we call strategic withdrawal. Strategic withdrawal is for you to say, yes, the problem exists, but the problem will be solved for us by America. The problem will be solved by France. The problem will be solved by some other constituencies. Or, as the Minister for Defense said recently, that the people themselves should solve the problem. Why don't you take up arms to fight these people? These people troubling you are cowards. So strategic withdrawal is that the state is abandoning its responsibility and actually creating the impression that a third party should solve the problem. And I think it's within that context that recently the president of Nigeria appealed to Africom to come to Africa, to say Africom is the one that will solve our problems. And when we got a negative response from there, the president also again turned to France and said, France, please, we need your support. And France came out boldly to say, we are not going to support you. The governor of Borno State and a few other governors are saying, no, we should turn to mercenaries. I mean, those that we refer technically to as military contractors, and the other Nigerians are saying, yes, of this world. So we have avoidance, denial, you have strategic withdrawal. The third one is confrontation, the use of force. And I think that is another problem with Nigeria. We have been using force, for example, since 2009 to deal with Boko Haram crisis. We've been using force to deal with the issue of banditry. We never cared to look at the root causes of all these problems, and so Nigeria has established itself as a connoisseur in the use of force, but unfortunately, the problems are escalating. Now, the fourth approach is what is called third-party decision making, the use of the parliament, the use of your court of law, But the question you want to ask yourself here is, how many of the problems have our courts of law been able to solve? How many of our problems have the parliaments, whether at the federal or state level, how many of the problems have they been able to solve? The last option, which is least respected in Nigeria, is what is called joint problem solving. And joint problem solving has to do with acknowledging the fact that these problems exist, and that those responsible for the problems are citizens, the average citizens in the country. And the joint problem solving is saying, bringing the people who you think are responsible for the problems together to dialogue, to discuss the problems. Because first, you need to frame the problem, understand the problems. When you understand the problems, you now begin to say, okay, how do we respond to the problems? And what joint problem solving approach does is that it produces a people-centered solution. And that is what Nigeria is running away from. So, to answer your question, you said we should identify the gaps.
The missing gap.
The missing gap is our lack of readiness to acknowledge the fact that we have problems, and to acknowledge the fact that the solutions cannot come from politicians alone, that we must invite the people to be part of the solution. That, to me, is the missing gap. But for now, we are denying the problems, we are using force, and all these are counterproductive.
Just recently, Prof, the House of Reps had a summit, security summit in Abuja, where they invited all critical stakeholders, and including traditional rulers. I saw the Oni of Ife, I saw the Sultan of Sokoto, I saw military top brass, the parliamentarians, deputies, Senate President, Speaker of the House, and they all talked, and even the NDLEA chairman, General Marwa was there. He made a presentation where he was talking about that we should watch it, that those who are calling for the legalization of cannabis and possibly do not know what they are toying with, that there is about 10.5 million Nigerian youths that are hooked on cannabis, and that is creating a lot of security challenge. Now, is that not part of the problem solving? You talked about framing the problem, or is it the solution you want to frame? there have been several security summits. The president is holding almost weekly security briefs with the top military brass. You don't think that is good enough for us? We are dialoguing, aren't we?
We are dialoguing, but the dialogue, most especially the example you have cited, is elite-centered. You have 3 levels of stakeholders when you have this type of problem.
Okay.
The elite, you find the elite at the top. And at the middle level, you find the so-called middle class, if they still exist. And then you find the grassroots.
I think you are one of them, sir.
You find the grassroots. You find the grassroots people. Now, most of these problems that we are talking about are created by the elite. It's an elite problem. I've just returned to this place from Wuse Market. You know, Igbo people helping Hausa people to manage their businesses. Hausa people helping Igbo people to, you know, at the grassroots level, the relationship is very solid. It's very solid.
No discrimination.
No discrimination. They just want to survive. Now, at the middle class level, if at all there is anything still called middle class, you know, we operate, we understand what is happening at the grassroots, we understand what is happening at the elite level. But we are out of governance. This society does not recognize the middle class. For example, I've been a professor of security studies since 2006. I've never been invited to any of these meetings. Just to even share my own perspective. I am the editor-in-chief of African Union Journal on Terrorism. I've never been invited to any meeting. So we read, all of us read about these meetings in Abuja. We read about them in the news. We hear them, I mean, we listen to news saying these people met. And the question, you know, you ask yourself most of the time is, when they meet, what do they say? Because most of the time you see in the news the president saying, we are meeting security chiefs, and we ask ourselves, what do they really talk about? Now, if a Professor Albert doesn't know what they are talking about, the grassroots people don't know what they are talking about, then how do you solve the solution? How do you solve the problem? Now, people stay in Abuja and begin to say intelligence. Intelligence we mystify it. We create intelligence as something that is going to fall from heaven. But 98% of the intelligence you are looking for, they are there in the grassroots communities. They are there. So the owners of the intelligence, you don't talk to them. And then you stay in Abuja and begin to say, we don't have intelligence. How are you going to gain intelligence when the owners of the intelligence are not involved in any of these talks? So I think the problem of Nigeria, one, has to do with lack of strategy. And lack of strategy.
But we do have a security strategy.
The security strategies are totally, you see, they are only on paper. In 2014, 2015, I was a member of the Presidential Committee on the review of Nigeria's defense policy. Many of our security people don't know what is in that document. Now, we have reviewed it, and the President Buhari is still trying to present it to the public. I mean, we have tried twice now, the thing is failing because of,
3 years after.
You know, yes, they are still trying to present it to the public. But I commissioned a PhD student to work on it, and he still came back. This PhD thesis is yet to be defended at the University of Ibadan. One of his findings is several generals don't know the content of that document. So you just commission people to write some of these things, and those who are supposed to be using them, put them away, and then go to the missions to do whatever they want to do. How many of the commanders of the operations are aware of some of these things? They are not aware. They go there to do things that they want to do. And so that is why when you send 100 journals to some of these missions, they all go there to do whatever they think
is the solution.
Yes, is the solution. So, and now when you bring these people together, it's difficult for you to see what you call diachronic knowledge. To say, okay, this is what those of us who dealt with this problem in 2014, this is what we discovered, this is what we did, these are the gaps that we saw that year. The person that took over, now started from filling the gaps and then transfer. So if you look at the entire system holistically, you realize that mistakes made in 2014 are still being made in the year 2021. And that is to say that we are not integrating knowledge. In other climes, what is done is, as operations are developing, you are having series of lessons learned, so that this person who has experienced it is transferring that experience to another person, is transferring that experience to another person. So we still have a situation where people say, so it's a very complex. I don't think we have strategy. To me, that is my own belief. We don't have strategy. Everybody is just interested in doing his own business the way he wants to do. He wants to discuss it.
Okay. Now, I know you are involved in resolving the Ife crisis years back.
Yes.
Were you engaged by the Oyo State government then, or by Osun State government, or by the federal government in resolving that issue? And that issue has remained resolved up to today. We have not heard of clash between Ife and
that project was commissioned by the U.S. government.
Wow.
It was commissioned by the U.S. government, but sometimes you see politicians saying claiming that they are right, because they don't even know what is happening in the country.
Wow.
You see, when we intervened in the OPC crisis, and OPC stopped.
That's a different one from the Ife crisis.
Is the one I show more interest in.
Okay.
OPC stopped violence, but nobody today in Nigeria has ever asked any question why it stopped and how it stopped. And that is to tell you that the country is very fragile. If a Modakeke crisis stopped, today, I don't think that knowledge is in the public domain, how it stopped. I was listening to a TV conversation, I think last month, somebody saying the government stopped it. And I just laughed because one, they didn't know what happened. They didn't know what happened. They didn't know how that project took place for 3 months and then moved from what the public knows to even the spiritual dimension until the people were committed to sustainable peace in that place. So it's a country that is not really, we are not serious in managing ourselves. And this is because governance in Nigeria is just a free-for-all kind of enterprise. And there is no institutional memory. There is no attempt to be scientific in engaging the different situations. And when people claim to have solved the problem, they cannot give you the methodology. So it's difficult for us to pick lessons that you can take to the classroom, because those who claim to be solving problems don't have the understanding of what happened. They don't have the understanding of the strategies that were used. And therefore, if you challenge them to if a Modakeke crisis was managed and the thing stopped at a stage, take that lesson to the next place. They cannot tell you what lessons they want to take.
But people like you are alive, and I believe you must have documented this somewhere. And also, sorry, Prof. Let's take that alongside with the numerous Institute for Peace Studies and Practice that we have. You have established about 3, 2 of them in Nigeria. You established the one in University of Ibadan. You established the one in University of Ilorin. The Cape Coast. Then we have under the presidency here in Abuja, Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution. What are these different institutes, and the knowledge, the scholarship you have brought to bear to resolve some of these crises? I believe as a scholar you have documented this somewhere. Is it that nobody is interested in reading about them, or what?
Well, students read them. Our students read them. But our state officials don't read them.
But they are part of your students.
And I'm going to put you on the spot here now. Gidi, I'm going to put you on the spot. You know what we did in 2007. How we set up an early warning system for that election. We wrote reports. You were part of that engagement. We produced books. Let me remind you of what happened in 2007. We produced books that would support peaceful election in 2007. Up to 7 books. You remember how we chartered buses? We took those books to National Assembly and National Assembly members rejected them. You remember? So, what we're trying to say here is that those who lead us are not interested in knowledge. And you will recall that when we took those books in buses to National Assembly, and we were literally driven away with our books. You remember how we're distributing them on the streets?
On the streets
in Abuja here.
Who may not
So, in fact, we're begging people to have those books that the British government spent millions in producing. So, our leaders are not interested in knowledge. They have no respect for knowledge. Those of us who are professors are merely tolerated. And we are invited only when politicians are celebrating their birthday to come and give talks, and that's all. And we are quickly pushed out to say, look, the next stage is merriment. So go away with take your honorarium and just go. So we have a society that is not constructed for sustainable development. And we're saying this in the context of our experiences in the other parts of the world. We're invited to develop countries to do things that Nigeria will not allow. The leaders there, the politicians there they are ready for knowledge, they are ready for everything. 2 years ago, I was invited to give a keynote address at Chatham House in London. All the eminent people, from different parts of the world were gathered at that meeting. I gave a keynote address at Chatham House in London. Where's Nigeria's Chatham House? So the society as presently constructed is not for development. It's not for sustainable development. People just go there, do whatever they want to do. They tell you one thing in the morning, you go to them in the afternoon, they say another thing. In the evening, they tell you another thing. So how do you sustain the political system with that type of erratic structure of governance?
Interesting. Now, let's get to the brass tacks. Let's bring it home. I want us to do conflict mapping here.
Okay. Because you're an expert in it.
Look at the southeast and south-south.
Yes.
Unprecedentedly, you have sustained destruction of instruments of coercion as well as democratic institutions. I'm referring here to police stations being burnt, police officers and men being hacked down in cold blood, as well as the Independent National Electoral Commission's offices being touched, being raised. What is responsible for this?
You see, early in that unfolding scenario, I did some analysis for my students, and I said two things. The first is that when you have consistent attack of prisons, you have jailbreak on consistent basis.
Yeah.
You have attack of security management institutions. What is happening is that those behind it are trying to demystify the state and to create their own state. Because when you release prisoners, you are building an alternative army. That is, I'm calling attention to what is in the books.
That's what.
When you see that on a consistent basis, those responsible for it are trying to create an alternative army.
Yeah, because in Imo, about 1,800 plus were set free a few weeks ago. Only about 600 have been arrested. So you have over 1,200 that have mingled with the disappeared into.
And many of them, I'm telling you,
ardent criminals,
will be going out through all kinds of arms training. And then when at the same time you see people attacking police stations, you are demystifying the existing security management institutions in the country. And that means that behind the scene, there is a formation that is yet to show its face. Now, what one would expect is for government to come out to explain to the public what is happening and to get the public ready for a people-centered response. But Up to yesterday, the Nigerian state creates the impression that these are unknown gunmen. So it's really confusing. So the government, as of yesterday, was still referring to hoodlums, that hoodlums came to attack, or they tell you these are unknown gunmen. So
who drove around? Who spent about?
Sometimes they spend hours.
I mean, they even dance. They hold the
where they release 1,800 whatever. They danced, they carried out all kinds of theatrical performances.
Yes.
In front of the government house, before they started this thing. And then the government still creates the impression that these are hoodlums, these are unknown gunmen. So that is why sometimes when IPOB said we are not part of it, some of us are beginning to believe that probably IPOB is not the organization behind this. If IPOB is not the one responsible.
So, Prof, let's you just spoke about the issue of anti-knowledge. We have so many institutes and
a political system that is hostile to intellectualism.
Yes. But we were talking about the problem in the southeast and south, the sustained attack on the security institutions, police institutions, and then you were talking about the fact that that's the demystification of the state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a demystification of the state. But when you have the state being so demystified, it tells you indirectly that some people somewhere are trying to create an alternative state.
Yeah.
Now, one would have expected the state, through its criminal profiling system, through its intelligence analytics, to tell the public this is what is happening and to get the public ready for countermeasures. But what do we get in return? The government tells you that the attacks are carried away by unknown gunmen, and then they tell you the attacks are carried out by hoodlums. Now, the question that we are asking at academic level is who are these Nigerians called hoodlums, and who are these Nigerians that we call unknown gunmen? And IPOB has consistently been saying we are not part of it. So,
but do you believe IPOB? Because IPOB has what we call Eastern Security Network, which is the armed wing, just like OPC had an armed wing then. Don't you believe that the IPOB may have been denied based on the fact that they have been proscribed?
No, but then it is the responsibility of the state to prove that IPOB is responsible. It is the responsibility of the state to prove that ESN is a responsibility. You see, he who accuses must prove. But rather than the government doing that, the government often comes up with an escapist explanation of the whole thing that confuses the situation. This escapist approach is to say, the government will not say it was done by ESN. The government will not say it was done by IPOB. Government will say it was done by hoodlums. Government will say it was done by unknown gunmen. So by saying unknown gunmen, that is to say, you know that it is not IPOB, and you know that it is not ESN. So you don't expect these two organizations to begin to claim responsibility for what the state itself has denied. So it's difficult.
Okay, Prof, let's go to the academia now. We are still doing conflict mapping. In many institutions, there is no security. Mass abduction of students across the 3 tiers of education, primary, secondary, university. The Greenfield students, as at the time we are having discussion, this discussion have not been released. We just managed to get the African School of Forestry Mechanization student released some few weeks ago. Now, given that scenario and the fact that many academic institutions have also been attacked, including, giving an example, Ahmadu Bello University, where a number of lecturers have been abducted, including Epoma, where a professor of agric on his farm, on his way to his farm, was abducted. What do you think is the way out of this mass abduction and the climate of insecurity in our academic institutions?
Well, to me, I think what is happening now will qualify in the literature of terrorism as extortionate terrorism. We call it extortionate terrorism. That has to do with terrorism that is aimed at extorting financial resources from the victims. Now, why are they targeting schools? Kidnappers generally, if you study them theoretically and you look at the practice of extortionate terrorism, we have what is called hostage value. They don't want to waste their energy. They take those who could give them money. And let me use an example. If you hijack a bus, let's say a luxurious bus, you have 50 people in the bus. Some of them borrowed money for buying the tickets. So if you kidnap such people, you have wasted your time because nobody will even ask you for them. But when you go to schools, most of the people you find in our schools have very high hostage value. If you pick a lecturer, if you pick a professor, you know that if the relatives don't come out, the institutions that person is serving will come out to pay something. If you kidnap a student, a university student, the parents will come out, the institution will come out. That is different from going to Wuse Market to kidnap people. So now they are targeting these institutions because they know that they house many Nigerians having very high hostage value. So it will continue for a very, very long time. But the question you want to ask yourself is, when we experience the first batch of such kidnapping, Chibok, Dapchi, the federal government created what they call Safe School Initiatives.
Yes.
So by now, since that period, we expect the Safe School Initiative to have come to a level of maturity that will serve as a deterrent to anybody that wants to engage in that type of school-based adoption. But the question today is, I don't think we can actually find any evidence of that initiative.
What alarms is even that has been discontinued, that it was supposed to be a pilot in a number of states, in the Bay States.
And what lessons came out of the pilot?
Well, we never will know. So that's why we are calling on people like this. But no, you try. I feel afraid when you say this will continue for a very long time.
It will continue for a very long time because it's now a business. It's a business. There we differentiate between political criminality. We differentiate between political violence and criminal violence. And criminal violence, the type that these people are engaging, can be broken into two. You have career criminality and you have situational criminality. Now, these people that are engaged in this kidnapping, they are careerists. It is to them a career. It is to them a career. Because when you see some of them being interviewed on television, you listen to them, they do not see it as something extraordinary. They look at it as a profession. And the profession is expanding. And we're told that kidnapping today is more lucrative than armed robbery. Because when you are engaged in armed robbery, you are not too sure how much you will get. But when you are engaged in kidnapping, you can dictate what you want. If you say, okay, you are looking for 100 million, the person has looked for money left and right, and then you find kidnappers advising people to go and take loan. So they know what they want to take from you, and they will make you cough it out. You can never make that in robbery, Because if you rob a bank today, you are not too sure how much you are going to get. And then kidnapping also, we are told, is not as risky as armed robbery. And those scholars who are studying it now, they will tell you different types that we have in Nigeria. You have the wholesale, you have the retail. And we are told that some people now, what they do is they do mass abduction. They do mass abduction and they quickly sell the victims 500 naira, 500,000 or 1 million to the bigger the bigger businessmen. Now these bigger businessmen, they are not the ones that will go to the road. They will buy from you 500,000, and when they buy 20, they now begin to ask each of these people to go and produce 10 million. It's a very simple business. And so those people who are doing this second stage of this thing, they are not even taking any risk. The only risk they are just taking is the phone calls to the relations of the victims. So it is a business that is expanding very, very fast, very, very fast. And the way it is expanding, I see it becoming a share kind of a business in which people will be having shares. Because very soon you have people who say, okay, I don't want to be part of your mass abduction. I don't want to be part of your retail whatever. But I want to invest some money so that when you finish all your business, you give me my own profit. We are moving towards that stage. One of the researchers that worked on, well, let me not reveal this aspect, but it is something that is expanding very fast because the state does not have the capacity to protect.
Now, this is very scary. Are you saying that, like a cleric recently advised, that people should have plan B? We should all, like Andrew, try to check out, if possible, given the fact that this problem seems to be lingering for too long and it's going to get worse from the postulation you have made.
No, it will certainly get worse with the level, with our well-established lack of capacity to stop the problem. I mean, I sympathize with Governor El-Rufai of Kaduna State. He said he was not going to pay ransom, he was not going to negotiate with any bandits. But imagine the way the bandits conducted themselves to say, okay, we are going to make the state ungovernable for you. And El-Rufai doesn't control the police. El-Rufai doesn't control the army. But the kind of response we're getting from federal government was not, did not commensurate with his decision not to negotiate. And that is why the family members of those kidnapped abandoned Kaduna State government, abandoned federal government, and started negotiating
bilateral negotiation.
Bilateral negotiation is a dangerous thing for any nation. It's very dangerous. When you are no longer you no longer have confidence in the state, and then you begin to deal with criminals on your own terms.
Yeah, but that brings us to this. There's a bill before the National Assembly where the National Assembly, I don't know whether it's House of Reps or Senate,
that is
saying that
they want to criminalize.
If criminalize payment of ransom, that you risk 15 years in imprisonment if you pay ransom to kidnappers.
But to me, I think that would be a draconian law. You see, you can only have that type of bill when the state has demonstrated clearly the capacity to protect you. So what we will have when that law is in place is the state will not protect you and you cannot protect yourself. Then you begin to ask yourself, what happens to the sections of our law that is talking about self-protection? Because self-protection is not actually taking up weapons against the enemy, but doing whatever that you can, that is possible and that is within your reach for ensuring that your life is not taken. So to me, I think that that kind of law is antithetical to good governance, and I don't think it is in line with what one would refer to fairness in legacy. It's not a fair legal system.
Now we are told, Prof, that in neighboring,
if the parliamentarians themselves are taken,
of course,
are you saying they won't pay?
Well, that's a rhetorical question, Prof. Let's go to the
to be answered by Prof.
To the issue in Niger State. We are told in the news recently that some bandits went to some rural communities, to villages, and told the people there.
And the people there pay now.
That if you know you want to farm, pay 200,000 naira, and you will have access to your farm. Failure to pay, you will not.
If you go to many parts of the northeast, that type of money is paid. It is called protection fees. And recently we were talking to some people outside Nigeria about it. Because you see, some of these problems we face, most especially in the northeast, they are not peculiar to Nigeria. The whole of the Sahel region, if you travel around from Mauritania to whatever, you hear the community members talking about Boko Haram. Boko Haram is not an organization that is, they have relationships all over the place. Now, when you interview some of the people that are familiar with what is happening in the northeast, they tell you that it pays them to pay protection fees than to be waiting for the military to protect them. Yes, they say, look, it's like you are going to gain 10 naira from your farm produce, and then you give Boko Haram 1 naira. They will leave you alone, and then you do your business, you plant, you fish, you do whatever you want to do, and you get your 9 naira. So it's a rational economic decision. And I think that is what the people of Niger State are trying to do. To say, well, these people come, they kill us, they do all kinds of things, we are not protected. But now these people have negotiated protection. To say, okay, if you pay us, in the northeast, some of the people pay taxes, apart from the general protection, whatever. So what the people of the Niger State are saying is, these people have assured us that if we pay protection fees, they will not touch us, and they are paying.
So this is, let's look at this against the constitutional provision that says that welfare and
the first responsibility of the state is protection of lives.
Now, the abdication of this protection has led to agitation for self-determination.
Yes.
You are from the Yoruba race. June 12, some agitators have said there will be a referendum. They want out of Nigeria. The indigenous people of Biafra said they want out of Nigeria. Do you think this is the way to go? This will help us solve. If we are on our own, let's go the way of Czechoslovakia or Yugoslavia or USSR. Let's have our independence and then we will be able to govern ourselves. Is that the way to go, sir?
Well, it's not the best way to go. You see, Nigeria is better off when all of us are together. When I go around the world, people respect me and in some cases fear me because I'm a Nigerian. One, the size of Nigeria is intimidating to several other nations of the world. Our exploits in peacekeeping, the achievement of Nigerians put together. But the problem that we're having now is that this system is not paying some people. They contribute to the Nigerian state, but they do not get commensurate benefit from the Nigerian state. You know, where you come from determines what you get, and that is technically referred to as horizontal inequality. We did a project in Oxford on horizontal inequality. So any country that is structured as we are, we certainly face the kind of problems that we are facing. Now, those who are saying we want to exit the Nigerian state, they are saying it because the state is not sufficiently protective of them. There is a Yoruba adage which says that when you rest on a tree, if that tree cannot support you, then that tree, if it falls upon you, cannot kill you.
Yes.
You know, so, and I think it is that theory that is affecting this idea of people saying, look, if the system is not developing me, why don't I create an alternative system? And then when we discuss it, you know, in a meeting, and we say, look, let us do all that could be done to prevent the Nigerian state from disintegrating. You find some Nigerians say it's not possible Nigeria will not disintegrate. But the question is, if the former USSR disintegrated, if the other thing disintegrated, what is Nigeria? So our leaders are very, very, the way they think, to me, is not proper. Those who are governing us don't have the kind of mental state that can keep this country together. And it's a huge problem. Because what one would think is that these leaders will put in place structures that will bring all of us together. But when you look at the pronouncement of our political leaders, they are keeping us apart. Even yesterday, 2 days ago, you see the kind of things they are saying. It's like they just want people to just go. I don't know why people take that type of stand. You know, you come up with policies that exclude people in a period where the global community is talking about inclusion. You have a system that excludes community members, whereas the whole world is putting in place systems of community engagement. We have just, at the level of African Union, you know, the Center for Counter-Terrorism, we have just developed a manual for retraining the military. And we have about 5 chapters on community engagement. Because most of these problems we're talking about are domain in communities. They are located in communities. But whereas in the other parts of the world, structures are created for dealing with the problems at community level, in Nigeria, every problem is taken to Abuja. And this one, I was interacting with a traditional ruler. There is a conflict between 2 farmers, and they were arrested. Before the traditional ruler of that community could see them, they said they've been taken to Abuja. So it's a very strange situation. 2 people fight, you know, in a community. The following day, they have been taken to Abuja. For what? Does Abuja understand the local context? Has Abuja exhausted all the structures available at that community level to deal with the problem? Traditional rulers are not respected. Local governments are not in existence. So we are not, the way we are organized does not show me that we are really interested in having a united Nigerian state.
That is another scary scenario you've painted. But let's look at, as you wind down and try to find solutions to all this, what do you see as solution to this separatist agitation? Particularly the indigenous people of Biafra and the Odua People's Congress that have said, look, we are going to pull out. Do you think that this issue of elders-farmers clashes, which the president has reluctantly granted that ranching, his government will support ranching and grazing reserve. Do you think that will lay to rest the issue of elders-farmers clashes? Let's start from there, because we have not said anything about the elders-farmers clashes, and it has been responsible for thousands of deaths in the last 5-7 years. So how do you think this issue, do you think it has been sufficiently resolved with what the southern governors, the northern governors, the Nigerian Governors Forum, and now the president has said, we will do ranching, we will support states that have given us land, and that will be, do you think that will sufficiently address the problem?
Well, to me, I don't think it will address the problem. It will not address the problem because, yes, it is a solution, but how to counter the matters arising from that policy, this government does not have the capacity to handle. When we were at the 2014 conference, we discussed this issue exhaustively. I was in a committee called Committee on Immigration and Related Matters, and that committee was chaired by the Emir of Yauri, and very prominent people in that committee. In fact, I was one of the least important persons in that committee.
As big as you are?
Yes, as big as I am. That committee agreed on what the president is saying now.
2014?
Yes, that is to tell you that they have wasted our time since 2014. What the president is saying now, we agreed on in 2014. And then after agreeing on it, we now did scenario building. What kind of conflict could arise from the implementation of that policy? And then we said, problem 1 will arise, problem 2 will arise, and then we created structures for addressing problems one, problems two. So what the 2014 conference decided is superior to what the president is saying in which month are we now? That the president is saying in May 2021. They have wasted our time since 2014. You know, several policies you see, several conflicts you see in Nigeria now, several of these policies were discussed in 2014, and we had recommendations on how to deal with each of them. Some of the recommendations are so superior that if the government could just go back to that document and just steal some ideas from it, some of these tensions that we have in the country will go down. So what I find very, very, very worrisome is to say, okay, some people have recommended how some of these problems will be solved. You say, no, you don't want those recommendations, and you don't have your own ideas you don't have alternative ways of dealing with the problem. And I think this is the problem Nigeria is facing. We never slept throughout that conference. Media people like you, every morning will come and record those of us sleeping. But you were not told why people were sleeping at the 2014 conference. Throughout the night, you see, you finish the conference around 6 p.m. You go out to eat for 2 hours from 8 sometimes till 6 o'clock. People are still meeting. So when those elders come in the morning and they are dozing, that is what the media will come and report. But the question is, nobody asked why people sometimes doze off at some of the district. So we wasted a lot of our energy. I call it waste because sometimes when I look back, I think I went to that conference to waste my time.
No, I don't think you should be that pessimistic. Prof, let's come back to you don't seem too excited about ranching and grazing reserve.
No, ranching is possible.
No, as being solution to elders farmers.
Yes.
What are the fallout that you think will likely come out?
You see, the fallout is for ranching. One, you cannot force any government, any state government, to do ranching. But if you package ranching very, very well as an economic activity, it is an economic booster. Let me give you, I cannot explain everything here. Let me give you a scenario. When you sell a cow, if you sell a cow for 300,000, what the average Fulani man gets as profit may not be up to 50,000. But on that cow, what Sheraton Hotel will get could be up to 1 million. It is this Fulani man we are all stoning. They are not the ones benefiting from this business. You see, what we just need to do is to think outside the box. What the tax that the state will get from the beef trade, the employment opportunity you are generating, because the employment opportunity is not limited to the Fulani man. There are transporters that will transport this thing. You have butchers. You have those who deal with in cheese, whatever. So you can establish dairy product, you can establish factories around it. But the problem is that for now, we're just looking at the Fulani man as the only person benefiting. And this is because we have a Nigerian state where we talk about distribution of resources and not production of resources. Now, for a state that is focused only on distribution of resources and resources coming from a region, oil, there is no way we can think outside the box. To me, what the S-men are doing, their business, is a vibrant economy, is a vibrant economic system, but that we do not understand. And so we saw part of that at the conference. And we said, how do we have a win-win situation? If a state is if a state is ranching, if citizens of states are, because when you say ranching, you are not saying it's only Fulani people that can ranch. You have
which is a fallacy.
Which is so.
Because I'm sure that former President Olusegun Obasanjo has a ranch in his farm.
He has a ranch. My Oga General Salam has a very big ranch. My brother-in-law has a very big ranch. So you see, we have a state that is not allowing citizens to talk. In fact, recently I was listening to one of them in Abuja here. He said, we don't have time for talk show. Now, a country that does not have time for talk show is a country that is saying we are not interested in joint problem solving method. And once you say you are not interested in joint problem solving method, the next alternative is confrontation. And this is what we are having. So by the statements of our state officials, you can actually provide justification for why Nigerians are taking to armed struggle. Because you have not provided them the opportunity to actually come out to talk. When we were at the national conference, the first 2 weeks, it was a shouting match. You said this, they will shout on you. But later, we settled down and started discussing the issues. Nigerians are not difficult to manage. Unfortunately, they are being managed by very difficult leaders. I think that is the tragedy. Nigerians are willing to talk. Nigerians are ready to work together. But they are led by people who want to use dictatorial methods for managing the state. And I think this is why we have so many problems. Because all these problems you have, as dangerous as the problems in the southeast, appears now. Go to Umuahia, go to Enugu, you still see northerners selling their animals peacefully. People are still selling suya. So then you begin to ask yourself, when you see some of these things, that why is Abuja so noisy?
So then now, this armed struggle, Prof, just recently on CNN, I'm saying this against the background of some governors saying, legalize arms. Let everybody have their own weapons to protect and defend themselves. But we saw what America is today facing.
Yes.
With issue of legalization of arms and ammunition. In 1 week, America has had 7 mass attacks in 1 week. And between January and May, this May that just ended, America has suffered 232 attacks, mass attack. As in, on average, you have 10, 15, 30 people being killed by one individual who ran amok. If we are to all go possess pump action or rifle or AK-47, do you think that will guarantee individual and family safety and security?
It's an ill wind that will blow nobody any good. In fact, if we are all armed and eventually we defeat the so-called enemy, we will turn the same arms against ourselves. So it is counterproductive. But those who are saying it, they are saying it because they are tired of not being protected by the state. I mean, imagine Plateau State 3-4 days ago, 17 slaughtered. You hear this in the news every day. These criminals just come, they kill, and they walk away. And it is that frustration that is making some political leaders to say, well, probably what we need to do now is to be armed to defend ourselves. But those who are saying it, I think should be told that that is not the solution. The better way out is for them to keep mounting pressure on the federal government and the security institutions in the country to engage in what is called R2P, responsibility to protect. Is a global doctrine. So if the Nigerian state is not protecting, we have to put more pressure on the government to protect citizens. But asking that people should be armed probably is not a solution to the problem.
Prof, as we went down on this interview, let's start to offering solution. We have identified the missing gap. The state has been irresponsible. The elite has not had consensus about how to solve the problem. Armed struggle, you said, is not the way forward. Self-determination is going to be counterproductive. So, what, in your own opinion, as a conflict expert, as a peace builder, do you think we should be exploring as a way out of this quagmire?
Well, you started this process by asking me to identify the gaps.
Yeah.
And I told you that the major gap that we have today is that Nigeria is not using joint problem solving approach. And therefore, my recommendation is for us to use joint problem approach.
So break
and
it
this
down
this joint problem approach will come under 4 domains. There is what is called whole of government approach, whole of society approach, whole of nation approach, whole of nations approach. Whole of government approach is for us to say that those managing us want to dialogue, to tell us this is the problem and this is how the problem should be solved. When you look at some of the things said by our National Assembly members and what the so-called the presidency, a group now constitutes itself into what they call the presidency. We don't know the difference between the presidency and the president. Now, the National Assembly will say one thing, the presidency will say another. There's a need for them to have what is called internal consensus building. The government should confront us as one body. For now, it's not possible. And another angle of looking at that whole of government approach is what the governors are saying is different from what the federal government is saying. For example, southern governors say no grazing, that no open grazing. Some northern governors have supported no open grazing. But the presidency, those who are managing the presidency, said it's an irresponsible resolution. In fact, one of them engaged in name calling. So it tells you that you have a problem. If the federal government and the state governments cannot even agree on what the problems are and how they should be solved, it tells you that you have a lot of problems because citizens are waiting for the government. So the whole of government approach is failing. Then you have the whole of society approach. How do you get the different constituencies in the society? And in this case, you say you are doing multi-track diplomacy. You are from track 1, which is government, down to track 9, which is the media. How do you get all of them to see this problem as something that should be collectively managed? And all of them speak with one voice to say we have this problem and all of us should work together to solve it. That is the whole of society approach. The third approach, whole of nation approach. The problem is Nigeria is not a nation. So you don't even talk about the whole of nation approach. The whole of nation approach has to do with has to do with civic engagement. In Nigeria today, civic engagement is difficult because you have Yoruba nation, Igbo nation, Hausa nation, this nation, that nation. And all of us talk down ourselves rather than speaking in one voice. So if there is no nation, you cannot have a nationalistic approach to the management of this problem. You cannot have a Nigerian approach to solving the security problem. Then the whole of nations approach. Whole of nations approach is for Nigeria to see itself as a member of the international community. The global community cannot say this is what is right, and we are doing the opposite. Here we call those that are not terrorists, we call them terrorists. Then those that are terrorists, we give them some other color, you give them it, then you are looking for the international community to come and help you fight your battle. That is why the international community is maintaining safe distance from us, because we are not truthful. We are not truthful in the sense that we know the truth. We know how things should be done. We know the global standards, but we are not ready to apply the global standards for managing our problems. That is why the international community is saying, okay, Nigeria, solve your problem the way you want to solve your problem. So, if the whole of government approach is failing, the whole of society approach is failing, the whole of nation approach is failing, the whole of nations approach is failing, it tells you you have a huge problem. Unfortunately, you have political leaders that are specialists in simplistic solution framing. And that is why Nigeria is sinking. And it's sinking very, very fast. We need to move very, very fast to get out of this state of denial. We have problems to be managed. And the problems cannot be managed by lazy minds.
But you are very close to them at African Union at global level. Do you think the whole of nations approach is not what will eventually resolve this issue? Because I'm looking at this challenge from angle of if Nigeria is allowed to go the way of Somalia, what people have called Somalization of Nigeria.
Yes.
Can the African continent be immune from the fallout and the ripple effect of that? Look at all our neighboring countries. How many of them can afford to take in as refugee or IDP, even 1/10 of Nigerian population. Because we are faced with countries with very small population and lack of resources. So if Nigeria disintegrates and the international community is saying, go solve your problem, do you think it will be in their enlightened best interest, given their economic investment in Nigeria, that will be in jeopardy?
Well, I think when you are looking at the whole of nations approach, and you want the international community to help, we have two problems. The first problem is that Nigeria is a sovereign state. Before the international community can come in, Nigeria is expected to have taken the first step to say, one, we have a problem, and then we need the support of the international community.
But that's what the president has done with asking America to relocate Africans to Nigeria.
But the same political system rejected intervention of foreigners. So it is what we seem to be doing by inviting America, by inviting France, and by now looking in the direction of mercenaries, is we are probating and reprobating. Because you say you don't need them, and now you are turning around to say you need them. And that is why they are also humiliating you by saying we will not come. You know, so Nigeria is a sovereign state. If Nigeria needs international support, Nigeria will appeal to the international community to come, and the international community will come. And if you want Nigeria, if you want the international community to come, probably you are appealing to the bodies that can send peacekeepers to Nigeria. You cannot be doing selective intervention. Now, is America, is African what you are looking for? Is French troop what you are looking for? So we have not been able to frame what we want properly. Now, the second part is that there is what is called the global responsibility to protect. The global responsibility to protect is saying that the international community can come in without your support if there is evidence of gross violation of human rights. Now, let's say you are activating R2P, the international community is coming into Nigeria to provide assistance. The question is, to provide which assistance? Is it to help IPOB, to help Yoruba people, or to help which group? So the Nigerian system is is complicated. And I think the best the international community can do now is to just be looking at you until you're able to frame your problems properly. Because if
Prof, as we round up,
yes,
if you have 5 minutes opportunity to speak to President Muhammadu Buhari today,
yes,
as let's assume you just got appointed as a special advisor on security,
yes,
what will you tell the president as solution that will calm finance, that will restore peace and order, that will make the system, the governance system in Nigeria to work?
I would recommend a national dialogue, and that national dialogue will take 3 steps.
Okay.
The first step is I would, as President Buhari, challenge the 6 geopolitical region of Nigeria to give me the minimum conditions for peace. Let them hold what will look like their own national conference. Bring every
regional conference.
Regional conference. Let them hold their conference, put their grievances together, come up with solutions to their own problems, what they would think the government should do, and their minimum conditions for remaining in Nigeria. When that is done, I will now bring representatives of the 6 geopolitical regions together to have a dialogue. It's not going to be the 2014 conference that we had, that we were in hundreds. So now you have representatives of 6 geopolitical regions sitting down together, submitting, discussing what they got from the regional meetings, and then now collapsing the ideas into a national agenda, and then debating it, and then agreeing on what will work for all the regions, and that document is now taken to the National Assembly for for discussion, and then we have a framework that will work for everybody. I mean, this is the way I'm looking at it. And I'm suggesting this because I see this government being afraid of a national conference. I don't know why the government is afraid of a national conference.
But they had one mini conference in Kaduna recently.
This is a conference of political leaders, people who are targeting 2023. Okay. We are discussing a serious thing, not the kind of things they are doing.
But there is also constitutional amendments going on.
What aspect of it is being, you see, when we are dealing with a problem of this nature, you are using the theory of conflict transformation. The theory of conflict transformation, which is really necessary now for Nigeria, is saying you transform the issues. What are the issues breaking us apart? You discuss them. Who are the actors? How do you change the actors? How do you change those who told you they wanted to fight corruption and who are themselves corrupt? How do you deal with that? Then you need to do what is called structural transformation, the structure of this society. How do you change the structure of the society in a way that will promote development? As a professor, I became a professor in 2006. My salary is less than $1,000. If I'm outside, my research assistants will take about $2,500. I am a professor, a very senior professor. I don't earn $1,000. And you want me to think for the nation. It's not going to work. So you need to do structural transformation. But some people are calling it restructuring. I don't want to use that as a scholar. But the last one is legal transformation. Legal transformation is talking about constitutional amendment. Now, out of 4, your constitutional amendment is just 1. Constitutional amendment cannot deal with issues transformation. It cannot deal with actor transformation. It cannot deal with structural transformation. The Constitution will only say that now, when you come to the parliament, there must be a lady, there must be 10 representatives, and when you are there, if a Yoruba man is a president tomorrow, the next person should be an Igbo person. That is not what will solve the problem of Nigeria. It's a more serious, we are dealing with a more serious problem. And we should also make the point that Nigeria is not for politicians alone. Nigeria is for everybody. So politicians cannot be negotiating their differences and packaging that to us as a transformation of the country. It will never work.
It will never work. Now, Professor Isaac OLAWALE has given us food for thought. For the past hour or thereabouts, we've been dissecting issues around conflict transformation, security, defense, all ambience, all strata of conflict. I want to thank you, sir, for sparing time to grant us this interview at a very short notice. I do hope that we'll see have Nigeria, because now
that is the prayer of
people are saying that there may be no 2023, but let's hope that we will find. We are always pulled back from the precipice at the very last moment. Let's hope that God will still work wonders.
Amen.
And Nigeria will get its problem resolved with eminent people like you and people of like minds coming together to help in resolving this conflict. You have done it. It's something that you have been doing over the decades, and we believe if the entire globe recognizes your expertise, this administration, this government needs to also look in your direction to say, give us a position paper, even if it's a policy brief, let's have the way out, so that before the end of 2021, we can start seeing the end of the tunnel, not just staying in the tunnel. That will be the size of our package on This Morning on ITV, Development Focus with Judy Ojo on This Morning on ITV. Today, Wednesday, we do hope that you have enjoyed the package we have brought to you this morning. We thank profusely Professor Isaac OLAWALE, a professor of peace and conflict, international giant, a scholar of international repute, who have been with us for over an hour discussing how we can resolve Nigeria's security challenge. We do hope you join us next week when we bring you a fresh edition of the program. My name is Judy Ojo. Please stay safe and stay blessed.